So you went to law school immediately after undergrad?
So yeah, worked for a year for a local pro sports team in group sales, like I mentioned, and then during that process, realized that I wanted to go to law school. So then, I was already living on Marquette's campus. I had a great level of familiarity with the campus, and Marquette had a brand new shiny law school building. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna apply there, and if I get in, I'm just gonna go there, and that's kind of uh, how it went down.
That's awesome, man. And you know what's amazing about that story is you went there and you felt a little out of place. There was a little culture shock, had to adjust. Eventually, that happened over time, and you actually returned for grad school. So that means like Marquette was doing their job, and they produced a great product in yourself, not just in undergrad, but also as a law grad. So take me through that process of law school. I can
Yeah,
imagine.
so you get to law school and immediately you realize that you're surrounded by high achievers, right? So like folks that to all type A personalities, all the people that were 3.8, 3.9, 4.0 kids like their entire life, and you put them all in one classroom and you put
Yeah.
them and you grade them on a curve, right? So naturally, law school is extremely competitive. It's very different than undergrad. Undergrad, you can still you can go out have fun time. You can still go out have fun with your friends. You can still play ball for 4 or 5 hours a day. Law school was a job. Law school you wake up 7 a.m., 6 a.m., and you're at the law school the entire day, whether you're in class or you're preparing for the next class or you're synthesizing your notes or whatever the case may be. Like you treat it as a full-time job because you're graded on a curve and everybody's there to get a job, right? And so um, but law school was everything and more for me, right? If it was again when I was in undergrad, I kind of just chose the school of business because I knew that we live in a society that revolves around money, right? So I didn't put enough thought into that. But in law school, it was like, okay, I'm dealing with the complex, the abstract. I'm reading case law from the 1800s, and I'm seeing how everything was sort of built. And it was just, I'm not gonna say I loved it, right? Because I don't think anybody loves law school. But the process of law school, I think I really, really enjoyed. Um, and so during law school, they kind of really push you into two different tracks, right? So either the litigation route, so think about, the lawyers that are in courtrooms or the things like that you see on TV. And then they also have like transactional attorneys, the folks that are, negotiating contracts and things of that nature and working for companies. And so um, you kind of your first year you take a sort of standard set of classes, but then your second year you can start to pick and choose what kind of classes you want to take and just based on my undergrad in business and just based on my personality and through conversation, I realized that I really wanted to pursue a more transactional track.
That was good, man. I appreciate you sharing that. It's great perspective for any young kid, from the north side of Milwaukee looking to go to law school. Get that perspective from you is amazing. I can imagine, would help them plan their process and path. So, okay, law school. It sounds like you liked law school. I don't think I've met a person that really that liked law school.
No, so I liked the process of law school, and I liked the fact that it was like, all right, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I think having that prior work experience and realizing that I wasn't dealing with anything complex and abstract, and I was kind of bored, to be honest with you. Like going to law school and just like I don't know, man. It just changes the way you think, like the skill set that you're acquiring. You hone your communication skills, your analytical skills, your just the way you sort of analyze situations and think about risk. I don't know. I don't think anybody loves law school, to be clear, but it was validating that I was amongst people that I don't know. We just kind of all understood that we were supposed to be there. If that makes sense.
That's amazing, man. And you recommend Marquette University's law school to anybody looking to get into law school?
I would say, I would say if I So the way I'll answer that is you really should think about where you want to practice. And that can be hard, right? It can be hard for a kid coming out of college to know where they want to set up their life, right? Or at least initially. But for me, knowing that I'm from Milwaukee, born and raised, and I wanted to start my practice in Wisconsin. You only got two choices in Wisconsin. You've got Marquette University Law School and you've got the University of Wisconsin Madison. So you've only got two choices in Wisconsin. So I would say the advice is, or the things to consider is, where do you want to practice? And then I would also say it just depends on sort of what your overall admission package looks like. And so the advice would be try to get into the best school that you can get into because that'll just open up your opportunities, right? So one of my best friends, he went to Notre Dame Law School, right? And so because of that, the amount of law firms and corporations and things like that want to hire him or want him to lateral, like that list is going to be greater because Notre Dame has a larger brand recognition, right? And also, I think it's ranked in the top 25 or whatever. So when it comes to law school rankings, definitely matter a bit more. So
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. And, I would love to chat with you since we're on the law school topic. Minorities, particularly African American men. The numbers of African American men or minorities overall applying to law school, I've read in the headlines, have decreased or are decreasing. Is that what you've observed as well? And then how would you suggest we improve those numbers?
yeah, so to your point, only about 8% of law students are black. And I think that's problematic for, a variety of reasons, right? I mean, how do we impact change in this country? It's through policy and through law. And so if you don't have a diverse slate of folks that are becoming lawyers, obviously, you can just imagine what that does, uh, and the negative impact that it has on our people. And so yes, to your point, I agree 100%. We have to find a way to improve diversity amongst law students, and one of those ways is through exposure, right? Like one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, like I'm really a head down, do the work, like kind of guy, but it's like, no, I have to show people that I exist because if we can just inspire one kid that says, you know what, I know a black guy that is a commercial real estate attorney, or I heard this podcast. He's a it sounds interesting. Maybe I should do that. Now we start to build some momentum and we start to change things, and now we can try to impact change that way through exposure. And so it is a problem, and I try not each and every day, but I try often to play my role, play my part in improving those odds. I take no pride in beating the odds that I've overcome. Right, I take no pride in that. It's like, how do we level the playing field? How do we make things better for all of us? That's my goal right now. That's my mission.
Awesome, man. Love you sharing that with us. Love you sharing that with us. Okay, so after law school, what happened then?
So in law school, like I mentioned, you kind of get pushed into either, you don't get pushed into it, but you realize that there's the litigation track and then there's the transactional track and maybe some government nonprofit and things like that. But for me, I was very clear that transactional sort of aligned with my skill set and my background. And so then in law school, I was very intentional about seeking out internships where I could actually figure out, okay, what do lawyers actually do? Again, me growing up, my dad was a school bus driver, so like didn't know any attorneys growing up, right? And so I needed to figure out, okay, what exactly do lawyers do? Legal education is largely based on like case law, and you're reading cases and summarizing the cases and things of that nature. But how do you actually apply those concepts that you're learning to the real world, right? And so my first summer, I entered at a private equity firm where I just really got exposure to like securities law and what the SEC does and what FINRA does and things like that. Um, but then it was my second summer actually where I was at a Fortune 100 company, and they had a law department of over 120 people. They had about 9 different practice areas, and the way the internship was set up was that we would rotate on different teams. So I would do a couple weeks on the employment law team or a couple weeks with the insurance team or whatever the case may be. And it was through that I realized, honestly, I was ruling out things that I didn't want to practice. I'm like, oh, that seems awful. I'm not doing that. Right. And so through internship is when I really, really started to see what does it actually look like to be an attorney? What does it actually look like to be a litigator for a Fortune 500 company or whatever the case may be. And so um, I recall one meeting specifically. I was doing my rotation on the real estate team at that company, and I got invited to a due diligence meeting. And I'm just shadowing, right? I'm just shadowing a more seasoned attorney. But just imagine for your listeners, imagine a conference table, a conference room, and you've got your architect, you've got your engineer, you've got an insurance person, you've just got a wide variety of skill sets and experts in the room that are all evaluating a potential transaction. And I don't know, I just thought it was the coolest thing that the insurance person would chime in and say, "Yeah, we need about $500,000 worth of auto insurance or whatever the case may be." And the environmentalist is saying, "Hey, this property has these issues, and this is how we have to remediate them, and this is the risk to us as the investor." Or the attorney coming in, and the attorney's talking about these are all the documents and all the paper that we've had to negotiate and draft and sort of push through. To properly allocate risk between sort of our side and their side. And so that meeting, just being there, being a fly on the wall, that meeting was so impactful for me. And then I realized, like, okay, here's an area of law where you take pieces of paper, and at the end of it, you get a shopping mall, where you get an apartment building, where you get an office building. And so it was really the tangible nature of real estate, if I'm being really honest, that made me say, you know what, I'm going to be very intentional about trying to stick around here. And through God's will, that happened.
Awesome, man. Let's clap it up for Larry real quick. That's a great story, man. We appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for sharing this amazing story. And, like you said, hopefully, whether it's North Milwaukee or anywhere in the country for that matter, somebody watching this video can be inspired about that and want to get into law school or go to a university like Marquette and hear about the programs that are available to them and, the internships and being very, to your point, intentional about finding what works best for you. And sounds like you found that. So that's amazing, man. Appreciate that storytelling.